A Shalom Akim Shalom, all praises, glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election and protection be upon your house in these times, right? So, today's lesson, I have on the screen, it says, in affliction, they will seek me early. And I kindly borrowed this, it's actually a precept that I borrowed kindly from the book of Hosea. So, as a matter of fact, before I get, I guess, deeper, what I want to do is read it. So it says Hosea chapter 5, verse 15. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early. So, I borrowed this because I was meditating on a couple of things in regards to the port strikes that are currently going on in, the United States, and kind of how that relates to essentially what I kind of wanted to focus on was the mindset of our people. And it also kind of reminded me of an account in Judges. So just bear with me on this. So what's happening with this situation in the US with the ports, right? So as a matter of fact, I want to play this clip a little bit just for establishing a kind of understanding of where I want to take this lesson, and hopefully, Yahweh Rakazah that this lesson is edifying. Without further ado, just listen right in.
The White House put pressure on US port employers Wednesday to secure a labour deal with striking dock workers. A strike by the International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA union, has blocked everything from food to automobile shipments across dozens of ports from Maine to Texas. Analysts have warned it will cost the economy billions of dollars a day. One data firm found that more than 38 container vessels were already backed up at US ports by Tuesday. That compared to just 3 on Sunday before the strike. President Joe Biden said Tuesday foreign ocean carriers have made record profits since the pandemic, when longshoremen put themselves at risk to keep ports open. He added its time workers were offered a strong and fair contract. The White House said Biden also directed his team to monitor for potential price gouging activity that benefits foreign ocean carriers. The ILA represents 45,000 port workers and launched its strike just after midnight Tuesday. They took action after negotiations with the US Maritime Alliance, or USMX, for a new 6-year contract collapsed. The USMX had offered the union a 50% wage hike, but ILA leader Harold Daggett said the union is pushing for more. He wants a $5 per hour raise for each year of the new 6-year contract and an end to port automation projects that threaten union jobs. He said the dock workers were prepared to fight as long as necessary to get the wages and protections they want. The strike is the ILA's first major stoppage since 1977 and affects 36 ports. JP Morgan analysts estimate the walkout could cost the American economy roughly $5 billion a day. The National Retail Federation called on Biden's administration to use its federal authority to halt the strike. Republicans have also called on Biden to end the strike, warning of its impact on the economy. Biden has repeatedly said he will not do so. The US Department of Agriculture said Tuesday it does not expect significant changes to food prices or availability in the near term.
Okay. So essentially what's going on is you have these port workers, they're protesting in regards to their wages, compensation, benefits, so on and so forth. And the longer this goes on, you have what's going to go on is a chink in the system, a chink in the supply chain, right? Because this affects other businesses that are strongly relying on these different items, and this is everyday items as well. It's not just food. You have automobiles. You have things that people use to maintain the infrastructure on a day-to-day, right? They play an important key role in actually keeping the system running, right? Just think of it as the blood, right? The blood, the blood in the body, plays, very, very important role. The heart plays a very, very important role, right? So it helps to make sure that things are running smoothly, things are getting, things in your body, gets the nutrients that it needs to keep your body running, right? So think of it as the ports play a very, very important system in maintaining essentially the economy. Now, what I really kind of wanted to more focus on, for this lesson is the fact that, when it comes to, and I kind of want to specifically kind of tie it in strictly about food, right? Because what food does really, you know, it brings a sense of essentially ease and comfort, right? So especially in a society, in a very, I don't want to say a first world country, but for the sake of argument, a first world country, like America, Canada, UK, these different these different well developed nations, right? One of the things it does, and having it so readily available, it brings a sense of ease, comfort. It brings a sense of essentially entertainment. It diverts the mind. It keeps the people's minds away from essentially I don't want to say struggle, but essentially struggle, right? It's not like something that you kind of have to work so hard for. It's kind of something that is so quickly and so easily available in these kind of societies, right? Like the society is not like your agrarian societies where you had to go outside and you had to go and farm, essentially labor for it, and actually, wait for the crops to grow. It takes time to actually get those tomatoes and get those nutrients that you need, right? It's not like that anymore. Right now, in these societies, what you can do is, you go onto one of your food carrier apps like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, whatever it might be. Then you have food quickly and readily available for you. Forks, knives, tissues, everything is provided, right? It's not much thinking or any kind of effort required, right? And it satisfies all your happy chemicals, gets released from your brain as soon as you bite into it, right? So why am I really saying this is the fact that because it's also so readily available, this is one of the reasons I've noticed that it will cause our people to think that they're in essentially a good case. They think everything is good. They're not really suffering any sort of affliction, and they think that okay, they're essentially in. They just think they're in a good case, right? When the reason that we're in this condition as a whole, and they don't take heed to these things. They rather mock the messengers and the prophets, is the fact that, we transgress ultimately against the Heavenly Father, and they can be judged, very easily and very quickly for these things, right? So, I kind of wanted to touch specifically, as a matter of fact, let me just get the account in Judges. Just bear with me on this. Okay, so this is Judges chapter 6. I'll start at verse 1. And it says, "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years." Verse 2. "And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. And because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. And so it was, when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up with the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them, and they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor ass. Right? So that's important. So it says, I'll read it in the NLT as well. It says, camping in the land and destroying the crops as far away as Gaza. And they left the Israelites with nothing to eat, taking all the sheep, goats, cattle, and donkeys, right? So that's very, very important because these things represents, cattle also represents sustenance. You know, what is happening with this port, you know, what is happening with this port, you know, is causing a chink in the supply chain. And what can this lead to is famine and lack of resources, lack of groceries, a shortage in your weekly, you know, groceries. You may not get as much rice as you want. You may not get as much drink as you want. You might not get your whatever it is, you know, for your family, you know, and this creates you know, this creates one, it creates a shift in the people's mentality, because you quickly start to see that the essentially, like it talks about in Matthew the 24th chapter, the love of many will wax cold, right? So you would start to see the real what's it called, the real I guess the real deal of what's behind, you know, people. You start to see them in their essentially their true colors, so to speak, when they're going through those things. A very small and minute example I want to use to describe that was, you know, during the demic in the past 3 years, you know, there was, I don't know if your brothers and sisters remember this, was the fact that they had like a number of items you could only take from the store. So, for example, okay, so say, for example, you went into the store and you needed toilet paper. The toilet paper, they were only allowing, I think it was about two per person or two per family or something like that, right? So, something like that. This is what can happen, you know, if this strike, you know, it continues to actually extend, right? Because what they said in the video, you know, it's costing the economy approximately $5 billion a day, right? So imagine a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a month, right? So you would start to visibly see the signs of those things being, you know, cut off, and the shelves being and essentially being empty, right? So I'm equating this to essentially Jake's mindset, because having that all readily available, things that it's not essentially so important to seek the Lord right now. And there is for them, because everything is so comfortable, because everything is so readily available, there is a sense of ease, and there is a sense of, oh, who's the Lord? I don't really need, you know, I don't really need Yahweh Shai. Everything, you know, everything's all good, right? They're not thinking like that. But the moment those things get stripped away from them, now they're going to start to, you know, seek the Heavenly Father's face. Oh, you know, Lord, forgive me, you know, this and that and whatnot. And then at those times, the Lord's not going to hear them, right? So that's why I'm kind of bringing out this lesson, because, you know, this is what can transpire if this thing continues, right? So Jake's mindset is not, you can already see the mindset that they have, where that it's not a healthy mindset, right? There is no sense of urgency. I'm going to jump to one precept in Acts. Just bear with me on this. And then I want to go back to the account. Okay, Acts 3:19, and it says, repent ye therefore, and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord. Right? So, you know, we're in this situation as a whole of our people, because, you know, we're subject to payments, and because essentially we transgressed against the Lord, right? And the Lord essentially kind of, you know, hid his face from us, right? Because we began to, you know, commit iniquity and heaping sin upon sin upon sin, right? So the Lord's like, you know, I don't want to deal with these people, you know, and give them a bill of divorce, right? So Jake doesn't understand that, that's why they're in this position as a whole. So, and there is actually no thought for them to actually come back and, return with good graces, right? Because, they see, some of the things that they have to do and it requires them to change, and, they don't want to do that, and so on and so forth. And, they don't want to put off a lot of their evil ways, and, because everything for them, everything is so easily and comfortably available for them, right? Okay, so going back, I'll read verse 4 again. So it says, and they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth. So the herbs, the crops, and those sorts of things. It says, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor ass. Verse 5, and they came up with their cattle in their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude, for they both and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And it says, verse 6, and Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, right? So that's another point I wanted to hit. In those moments of scourges and being, essentially the Lord was whipping them, because earlier in the same account, it mentions that Israel was doing evil. That's why the Lord put hell upon Israel by using the Midianites, because those heathens, what they were doing are essentially scourges for amendment. Famine also is a scourge for amendment, right? So, as a matter of fact, let me get that. And Jake doesn't take into account these things, because everything in this society, it promotes a sense of essentially ease, right? Especially when it comes to food, right? I like some treats myself, right? But that Jake's mindset is not to actually remember the Lord, right? They don't. As a matter of fact, I'll get that as well. This is okay, this is 2 Ezra 16, verse 19, and it says, behold, famine and plague and tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. And when you go into the word amendment in the etymology, it goes back to the word amend, meaning to essentially change, correction, right? This is why the Lord sends these things, was, the importance of these things is to actually, get, to keep us on the right track, and for us to forsake those ways that are displeasing unto him, right? The Lord doesn't want us to be doing these particular things and transgressing. So the Lord would use, essentially, whether it was the heathens, or whether it was, maybe something in your personal life, these things are, sent to us to actually, to amend our ways, and to essentially, walk on a straight path, not to essentially transgress against him, right? Verse 20, it says, for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be mindful of the scourges, right? So, another example of a scourge as well is you had this Hurricane Helen, right? So, I'm gonna give this a quick personal account, because what happens, not only dealing with the scourge itself, like for example a hurricane is very, very dangerous, if I'm being honest, right? Because you don't want to be outside during a hurricane. But also, what also is a scourge as well is the after effects of dealing with a hurricane. Just my personal experience, because after dealing with a hurricane, you have essentially a descent in the quality and the protection in society, right? So you don't really have police and fire and these like EMS, these emergency services kind of servicing the country. You don't have power. That's one thing. You don't have electricity. You don't have clean running water. All these different things, right? All these different things can affect you, right? All these things you need to kind of maintain your daily living, right? And another thing that also I remember experiencing was, during the time when I experienced a hurricane, for example, there was um, prison outbreak, right? So you had prisoners essentially kind of like that broke out, right? So all these are different things. These are different examples of a scourge of an amendment, right? Because and especially because I experienced that in the Caribbean, and you don't have that kind of robustness in like countries like America. But the point is still the same. It's still examples of different scourges, for amendment. Or you might even lose your roof, right? If you live in a wooden house or something like that, right? So the Lord has many different ways to essentially come at you, and Jake doesn't understand that the Lord is controlling essentially both sides, and the Lord can get you. Whether maybe he doesn't get you in the hurricane, but he might get you after the hurricane, because we all have sins to pay for, right? As a matter of fact, where is that in Amos? Amos 5:18, and it says, "Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. What to what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light, as if a man flee from a lion, and a bear met him, and went into a house, and leaned his hand on a wall, and a serpent bit him." Right? So like Jake doesn't seem to understand that, you go through something, and then you think everything is comfy and cozy and all that, and essentially, the Lord can get you somewhere else, right? He controls both sides, right? But that's the point here, right? We have sins to pay for, but Jake doesn't understand, like, you gotta seek the Lord now. That's what seeing the prophets out there right now, the apostles, the brothers, is a sign of compassion, and they're essentially, what they're doing is they're mocking that message. I guess I'll get two more. Okay, Isaiah 55, verse 6, and it says, "Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near." And the scriptures say that wisdom crieth out in the streets, to roughly paraphrase. She uttereth her voice in the chief place of concourse. And that's why you see, your own kinsmen, your own brethren, calling out to you to actually, to come out of those evil ways, and to actually be reformed, right? So the Lord can have essentially, can forgive you, right? Can be merciful towards you in these times, right? Because these are just two examples I used, right? There's more examples. There's like spirits creative of vengeance. There's wars and rumors of wars. All these different things, right? All these different things that the Lord will bring upon this society, and Jake doesn't understand that. This is these are all things that the Lord is essentially bringing upon this society. Verse 7, it says, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him." So like, mercy's still open. It's still open to you, but like the way things are looking, it's slowly closing. Right? So Jake doesn't, there is no urgency to actually want to get mercy. They don't see the value in the mercy. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've noticed that our people are doing, and I don't see any other nation actually doing this. It's mostly our people. They're taking the Lord's compassion, and they're kind of just they're mocking it. Right? They're doing something I've noticed is they're making all these like TikTok videos, talking about the Hebrew Israelites. So they speak very aggressive, all these trivial little things, right? And even Apostle Paul says this, I may be rude in speech, but not in knowledge, right? So they don't actually take time to examine what the brothers are saying, but they're so quick and so easily offended by how the message is being delivered rather than actually receiving the message. As a matter of fact, what's that? Sirach 11:7, and it says, "Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first and then rebuke." So there is no sense to try and understand what the message is being brought out and actually said, and actually even ask questions as well. There's no sense to do that, but and our people, they're so quick to try and judge and essentially, if we don't look like the most well decked out people when we're out teaching on the street. We look rough, we look like regular men, right? But that's just the way the Lord chooses, right? But they care so much about the vessel that the message is being uttered from, rather than receiving the actual message, right? And so and doing that, and even doing that and then mocking it as well, is going to be to their detriment. So I'll read verse 7 again, because it says, "He will have mercy upon him, and to our power, for he will abundantly pardon," right? So just as the Lord has going to bring a lot of judgment upon this place, he's also going to have a mercy as well, right? That's the balance. But Yahushua even said, "They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick." So our people, they don't actually, because they think they're in a good case, they think that they're whole. They think that they're not sick. They think that they're well, and all this kinds of stuff, right? They're like, how about I can't heal you and deal with you if you think that you're whole, right? Why go to a doctor, or why go to a physician, I should say, right, if you think everything is all good, right? How about I can't deal with a person like that. You have to, humble yourself and say, like, "Lord, heal me, Baba Kasha, please," right? And then they're not coming in a humble mindset and an urgent mindset. So, I guess I'll close off with this last one here. Just bear with me on this. Okay, this is First Peter 4:7, and it says, "But the end of all things is at hand. Be therefore sober and watch unto prayer." And it says, verse 8, "And above all things be fervent and have fervent charity, amongst yourselves, for charity shall cover a multitude of sins." Right? So in NLT it says, "The end of the world is coming soon. Therefore be earnest and disciplined in your prayers. Most of all, continue to show love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins," right? So, this goes to show the the mindset that we adopt in these times, right? Because scriptures say that the prayers of the humble pierceth the clouds, right? So we want our prayers to be heard, that Lord's will, we're protected in those times, and because we're in a situation like I just said earlier, we have sins that we've done, and we catch hell for those sins, and we don't want the Lord to essentially remember mercy in times of wrath, like it says in Habakkuk, right? So anyways, I've rambled on long enough, but I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying, just to show some something interesting that I've noticed in a time of famine that they were experiencing with the Midianites, that they were essentially ready to now call upon the Lord, right? They weren't calling upon the Lord before they lost all their substance, their crops, their sheep, their goats, their ass, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, my prediction, I think, is going to be, the same, right? But yeah, that's about it. Lord's will, this was edifying. So I like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Till next time, I say Shalom.